A billionaire who could buy anything in the world sat in a sterile hospital room, refusing the one thing money couldn't guarantee: another chance at life. Daniel Mercer, tall, silver-haired, and with a presence that once commanded entire boardrooms, now looked like a man wasting away by choice. Every treatment offered, every surgery recommended, he turned down with a clipped no. Nurses whispered that he was done with life, that he had no family left, nothing to fight for. But when a young doctor in a fitted white coat, her eyes luminous with defiance, entered his room and told him he was a coward for giving up, something in him stirred that had been silent for years. What he didn't know was that this doctor carried a secret that could destroy her career if she went through with what she intended. The hospital bustled outside his door with the sound of squeaking wheels and intercom announcements. Inside, Daniel kept the blinds closed, preferring shadow to sunlight. He had dismissed 3 oncologists, fired a specialist flown in from Switzerland, and left his meals untouched until the trays smelled sour. He claimed his will was made, his charities endowed, and there was nothing left but to let nature take him. But Dr. Evelyn Ross didn't walk away. She was 32, striking in a way that made people glance twice. Long dark hair tied loosely, bold red lipstick that stood out against her pale skin, and a crimson blouse under her white coat that made her look more like she was heading to an art gallery opening than a late shift. She didn't lower her gaze when he scowled. "You think dying like this makes you strong?" she asked, standing at the foot of his bed, her arms folded. "It's the easiest thing you could do. Real strength would be facing the pain." Daniel gave a bitter chuckle. "You don't know what pain is." Her lips pressed tight, but she didn't move. She had been spending her nights in a damp one-bedroom apartment across town, where the fridge held only a jar of pickles and half a carton of milk. On her way home, she passed a thrift shop where her younger sister, widowed with a child, sometimes picked through racks with trembling hands for anything warm. Evelyn knew pain. She carried it every time she swiped her nearly maxed out credit card for groceries, every time she saw her nephew's duct-taped backpack hanging from a chair. 2 days later, Evelyn was leaving the hospital when she saw Daniel being wheeled outside in a tailored coat, refusing physical therapy. He looked tired, but his shoes gleamed black and polished, while a boy waiting with his mother near the bus stop kicked at the curb in sneakers split at the toes. The contrast hit her. She went to her car, but something inside wouldn't let her drive away. That boy, her nephew Noah, was shivering in the cold, clutching bus trance for tickets his mother had saved from a shelter handout. Evelyn, the boy's mother, her sister Claire, called softly. Her hair was unbrushed, her cheeks hollow. "We didn't expect to see you here." Evelyn hugged them quickly, forcing a smile while cars roared past. She knew Daniel watched from his wheelchair, his sharp eyes narrowing at the reunion. He saw the way Claire's coat buttons didn't match, how Noah's school papers slipped from a torn folder. For the first time, Evelyn felt ashamed that the man she challenged for giving up might glimpse how close her own family lived to the edge. That night, she sat at her kitchen table, staring at bills scattered under the flicker of a weak bulb. Claire had lost her husband in an accident 2 years earlier, and the small life insurance payout had evaporated in rent and debts. Now eviction notices curled at the corners of her door. Evelyn could support them only so much, but her residence salary was a thread stretched thin. She brushed hair back from her face, her throat tight, thinking of Daniel's eyes. He had the power to help but chose not even to help himself. The next morning, Evelyn went straight to his room. He was sitting upright, staring at the rain streaking the window. "I saw you yesterday," he said without looking at her. "That boy, your nephew." Her jaw tightened. "Yes. Why didn't you tell me you're not just fighting for patients here, you're fighting out there, too?" She swallowed hard. "Because it's not your concern." He turned then, his gaze heavy. "Maybe it should be." The words unsettled her, like the shift before a storm. And just when she thought he might ask about treatment, he said instead, "If you want me to fight, you'll have to give me a reason worth fighting for." She froze, caught between fury and the desperate hope that he was finally listening. But before she could answer, the intercom blared his name, summoning a surgeon to review options he had already rejected. Her hands trembled as she adjusted her coat. Then listen, Daniel, because if you let yourself die, you're not just quitting on yourself. You're quitting on everyone watching you, including me. He looked at her for a long time, his lips pressed into a line, before finally whispering, "Convince me." And with that, the air in the room shifted, heavy with a tension neither of them could ignore. Evelyn didn't sleep that night. She kept replaying his words, "Convince me." At dawn, she found herself walking through damp streets toward her sister's apartment. The stairwell smelled of mold, and when Claire opened the door, her eyes were swollen from another sleepless night. Inside, the fridge buzzed with a hollow hum. Only a plastic container with scraps of pasta sat on the shelf. Noah's jacket hung by the door, its zipper broken, threads pulling loose. "Evie, you look exhausted," Claire said, brushing hair from her tired face. "You've been working double shifts again." Evelyn forced a smile and bent to hug her nephew, who was coloring with stubby crayons on the floor. "I need a favor. Can you bring Noah to the hospital later today? I want him to meet someone." Her sister frowned, suspicious but too weary to argue. "If it helps you, we'll come." By mid-afternoon, rain streaked the glass walls of the hospital lobby as Claire and Noah stepped in, their thrift store coats dripping. Patients and visitors glanced at them, some with pity, others with indifference. Daniel sat, waiting in a chair, his silk scarf draped around his shoulders. His posture was regal despite his illness, but when he saw Noah's duct, taped backpack, something in his expression cracked. "This is him?" Daniel asked softly. "Yes," Evelyn said, her arms folded to hide her nerves. "He's why I can't accept giving up. He lost his father. He deserves to see men who fight, not men who quit." Noah, oblivious to the tension, looked up at Daniel. "Are you sick like my mom says my dad was?" Daniel blinked. His throat tightened. "Yes, I suppose I am." The boy studied him a moment, then pulled out a drawing from his torn folder. "I made this for people who are sad. You can have it." It was a crayon sketch of a smiling stick figure, holding hands with a taller one. Daniel's hand trembled as he took it. He hadn't felt small fingers press something into his palm since his own daughter, long gone in a car accident decades ago. He swallowed hard and looked at Evelyn. For the first time, she saw fear in him, not arrogance. That evening, he called her back into his room. He had shaved, his silver stubble gone, and his eyes were clearer. "I'll do it," he said simply. "The surgery, the therapy, whatever you say, but only if you promise me something." "What?" "That you'll let me help your family, not out of pity. Don't insult me with that word. Out of obligation. If that boy can hand me hope, I can hand it back." Evelyn's heart pounded. Accepting his offer meant risking everything. Hospital policy forbade entanglements that blurred lines between personal and professional. If her supervisors discovered she had connected a patient to her family's needs, her career could be over. She hesitated, her fingers twisting the edge of her coat pocket, but when she thought of Noah eating stale crackers for dinner, of Claire standing in food bank lines clutching weak coffee in paper cups, she nodded. "All right, but this stays between us." The weeks that followed were brutal. Daniel endured treatments that left him pale and shaking, nights where he gripped the rails of his bed and cursed the pain. Evelyn was there for each one, her crimson blouse hidden under her scrubs, her eyes steady even when his faltered. He pushed through, and slowly, against the odds, he began to recover. Meanwhile, subtle changes touched Evelyn's family. Groceries appeared at their door anonymously, bags heavy with bread, fruit, and even chocolate bars for Noah. A maintenance man showed up to fix the broken heater in Claire's apartment, shrugging when asked who sent him. The eviction notice vanished from the door, replaced by a stamped receipt marked paid in full. Claire cried silently in the kitchen, her hands trembling as she touched the warm radiator. One snowy evening, Evelyn walked into Daniel's room to find him sitting upright, stronger, holding Noah's crayon, drawing on his lap. "You saved me," he said quietly. "You saved yourself," she corrected. He smiled faintly. "No, you gave me a reason. That's rarer than money, rarer than time." Weeks later, when Daniel was finally discharged, he left the hospital not as the man who had refused life, but as one who had chosen to fight because someone dared to defy him. Evelyn stood in the lobby with Claire and Noah, watching him step into a sleek black car. He caught her gaze, held it, and with a subtle nod, promised silently that he hadn't forgotten. Months passed. Claire found work through a referral she never knew traced back to Daniel. Noah walked into school with new shoes, no duct tape in sight. And Evelyn, though she carried the risk of exposure like a shadow, felt lighter knowing that one act of defiance had not only saved a man's life, but rerouted the course of her family's. The moral was clear every time she watched her nephew laugh with a full belly. Wealth is measured not in what we keep, but in what we risk to give. One act of generosity, whether from a child's crayon drawing or a billionaire's decision to fight, can alter the fate of everyone who touches it.